Now, Sky's security and defence editor, Deborah Haynes, was left fighting for her life last month after falling ill with an ultra-rare condition. Deborah has aHUS, which I'm going to let somebody else pronounce in a second, which affects her immune system, destroying blood cells and harming vital bodily functions. She first fell ill 8 years ago, but this second episode happened while on holiday on the remote Channel Island of Sark, and it took a remarkable effort from local medics to London doctors to save her life. Today is aHUS Awareness Day, and I'm delighted to say we're joined in studio by Deborah, along with haematologist Professor Marie Scully and critical care consultant Dr. Jim Down. A very good morning to you all, but most of all, Deb, it is great to see you looking so well. No one at home will know the extent of what you've been through. A lot of us were aware you were very unwell. I wasn't aware of quite how unwell and touch and go things were a month or so ago for you.
Yeah, it's quite hard to believe that it was a month ago that this all happened. And actually, the last time I saw Jim was in intensive care at UCH, and it was the incredible medics at UCH that helped save my life, and also the work of the hospital in Guernsey in the Channel Islands, and then the one doctor on Sark, which is the place where I was when I fell ill. And Sark, if you don't know, it's a designated dark sky area because it has no unnatural light there, no cars. And so when I became critically ill with atypical Haemolytic Uremic Syndrome, or aHUS, I was emergency evacuated to the port by on the back of a converted horse cart towed by a tractor, and then taken to Guernsey on a sort of a marine ambulance provided by St John's Ambulance Service, and then flown to Luton and then to UCH, all directed by Professor Scully, who was the expert who helped diagnose the condition in me the first time back in 2017. And when I heard she was on duty, I can remember I was in a hotel bed in Sark feeling awful. And then I heard, oh, Professor Scully's on. And I was like, oh, I'll be fine then. But yeah, it was horrendous,
well,
I'm not going to lie.
But still, from even hearing that good news then, an unbelievable journey you had to go on for your life to be saved. And again, it is just so good to see you looking so well in light of all that. More to dig into on terms of that journey and that fight for survival. But Professor Scully, can you just tell us what is aHUS exactly?
So it's a very rare condition, less than 1 per million of the population, which can happen very quickly. Now, there's two forms. The first form, one many more people would be familiar with, is when you get infections, petting animals, or from food. But the particular type that Deb has is because she's got an abnormality in one of the proteins controlling a pathway in the body. So on a day-to-day basis, there will be no impact. But obviously, if you have a trigger, likely infection, this whole scenario can occur. And it's very sudden. So it's likely she had an infection, her blood counts decreased really very quickly, but her kidneys failed. And along with that, it's the nausea, the vomiting, the extreme tiredness, jaundice. So only because we knew Deb had had it before, it was highly likely she had it again. And she needed to get to a hospital, not necessarily UCH, but we did know her, to have supportive care, which included supporting her kidneys and giving her blood products, as well as a very rare treatment.
And obviously it was a long journey that took time from Sark. How much longer would she have had?
Oh, it was actually pretty quick, believe it or not. Sometimes it can take longer to get patients from the south of England. They were very, very efficient. So even though it's acute, the chances of dying in the acute setting is not high. So it's more about getting to a hospital to have supportive care. Deb would have deteriorated clinically, but that time frame coming from Sark to us was acceptable. It was just more of the days afterwards. If she hadn't received medical care, she would have deteriorated significantly.
And Dr. Dan, tell us what happened as she came in. What were the steps you guys had to take?
So she came to us because her organs, her vital organs, were under threat. So the intensive care is there to support someone with any illness if they get to the point that the vital organs are shutting down. So it can be for any reason, a pneumonia, a road traffic accident, whatever it is. And particularly for Deb, it was her kidneys. And so we she came to us for monitoring of those initially, and then as they weren't improving, and she was feeling absolutely dreadful.
And I'm quite wimpy.
Well, no, I don't think you are at all. I mean,
Definitely not, given endless work for Sky.
So our chief job was to monitor and then to put in a big line into a vein and put on a sort of temporary dialysis machine to do the work of the kidneys for them. And as soon as we started doing that, along with the drug that Marie was giving, I think you started to feel a bit better, because part of the reason she was feeling so ill was that the waste products that the kidney normally excretes were building up. So that, I think, helped. Yeah. And
Deb, tell us about what was going through your mind, because you know how serious the condition is and has had a prior kind of spike in in your life a few years ago. But initially, on a very relaxed and well-earned break on the Channel Islands, you and your husband assumed it was food poisoning for a bit. What was your mental state when you started to realise, actually, this is pretty serious and I'm in a pretty remote place?
Yeah, it sounds really cheesy, but when it happened the first time, it was so shocking, because I'm fit, I'm healthy, I've got 3 kids, work full time, go to war zones, cover life challenging events, and so to go from working at 100% to suddenly being ill was quite a shock. And
this is the first time in 2017.
2017 was the first time. That was a huge shock, and to discover what I had was a shock. But I kind of just thought it only happened. It happened. I'd gone 40 years of my life without it happening, and I kind of thought that it wouldn't happen again. So I think at first I was just like, oh, it's probably food poisoning, and then it sort of like 24 hours passed, and I was still feeling terrible, and that sort of like thought came into my mind, maybe it could be aHUS again. And then when I kind of just realised, once you can do tests like you did, I don't say the word on the breakfast show, but a urine test, which shows that you've got very high protein, and that was one of the triggers that then meant that we kind of pressed the emergency button. And there's actually an emergency number that I can call at UCH with a team of aHUS nurses and medics that activate, and they mobilise to really help with this evacuation, along with the doctor on Sark. And actually the reason to really want to talk about it, because it's very personal, and it's really emotional actually being here back at work after everything that had happened. Mm-hmm. It is to try and raise awareness. Like, it is, people won't have this date in their calendar, but it is aHUS Awareness Day today. And actually I learnt the first time I got sick, it was the clever work of a haematologist in Kent who happened to be on duty that day, who had worked at UCLH and knew about aHUS and TTP, which is another rare disease. And she knew that I needed to be emergency evacuated to UCH to get treatment. And it's the speed of the diagnosis that is so key. Mm-hmm. And so it was just the fact that they diagnosed me quick, that I had this treatment, because as Professor Scully said, the longer that it goes on without the treatment, that's when the more permanent damage can occur. And
Professor Scully, what do you hope comes from this annual day, aHUS, but more importantly, Deb sharing her story today? What needs to happen?
Well, rare diseases are rarely discussed because there's many common conditions that we need to consider. But this is an important diagnosis that we should think about when otherwise fit and healthy young people go into hospital. And it can be treated very well, very quickly, and the quicker we treat it, the less likely there will be ongoing damage. And from that, I mean, we don't need patients to be on dialysis long-term, need kidney transplants. That's the consequence. And pre this treatment, there was a very high death rate. So we can avoid all that by prompt consideration, diagnosis and therapy.
Dr. Dan, there's obviously lots of pressures on various parts of the health service, as there have been for many years. I mean, this is quite an extraordinary example of all the different parts coming together in a life-saving way, but an unbelievably impressive way.
Yeah, I mean, this little group of diseases, TTP and aHUS, are very specialist, and in fact, they're probably, of all the things we do in intensive care, they're the ones we move heaven and earth to move to us, because the specialist treatment is so effective of Prof. Scully's team. So, we take people from all over the south of England, the Channel Islands, the Isle of Wight we've taken them from, because it's it's, you know, for instance, with TTP, the mortality drops from 90% to sort of 20% or something. You have to give me the figures, but it's huge benefit to being in a specialist centre. So I think in that kind of scenario, it's exactly when the NHS can be at its best, really.
Well, clearly has been in this example. So, Dr. Dan, Professor Scully, thank you so much. Deb, great to see you back looking so well. Take it easy. You're not back to work yet.
I've got a couple more weeks and then I'm straight back.
No.
I came back too soon last time, so I'm trying to take it easy, but we'll be back on the road.
Well, we're honoured to have you back to share this story on aHUS Day, but definitely take your time. I can tell she's too eager already to get back. Thank you all.